The United States of America, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So if we're so united and indivisible, how come we're so angry at each other? Take a look. This is the average presidential approval rating by people from the president's party and from the opposition party. See how the lines grow farther and farther apart? So you're not imagining things. We are more divided today than we've been in a long time. But I have a story to tell. A story that I think is kind of inspiring, even though it's about politics. But let's back up a sec. My name's Joe, and this is my dog, Charlie. We live near the beach in Los Angeles, where I've been trying to break into the acting business. My career didn't really take off the way I wanted it to, but I did star in a few pretty good plays, and I got onto TV a couple times. Now, I'm not that into politics, but I'm into it enough to get really mad at the other side, which for me is conservatives.
That is one of the altars of liberalism, is abortion. Killing innocent human beings disguised as women's health issue.
Marriage is between a man and a woman.
There are studies upon studies where a homosexual man is now heterosexual.
In order to function well in this country, we need the economy to function, and we're not going to do it, in my opinion, using the Democratic Party's approach.
If somebody's going to pay you to sit around, why would you not?
Socialism is great until you run out of other people's money.
See, I'm your typical bleeding heart liberal. I'm pro-choice, pro-welfare, pro-immigration, pro-gay marriage, pro-environment, pro-high taxes on the rich, and anti-war. I do typical liberal things. This is me trying to save the world, leading backpacking trips for troubled teens, and living in an old VW bus on the streets of Venice Beach. So yeah, conservatives would make me angry. But one day I had an idea. The Dalai Lama once said, "When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new." I decided it was about time someone started listening to the other side, and I decided that someone would be me. So, I took a break from pursuing the acting thing here in Los Angeles. I sold my car and bought an old van. My buddy Bob helped me fix it up. My buddy Tommy made a logo. I slapped a couple on the van, threw Charlie in the passenger seat, and headed across the country to see what new things I could learn about conservatives. This is the story of that journey. Okay, we're going to do this issue style. In my interviews with conservatives, we covered just about every issue in American politics. I'm going to focus on 7 of them: the size of government, welfare, the environment, abortion, gay marriage, racism, and immigration. In all of the issues, but in these issues in particular, I found that conservatives aren't as bad as we say they are. There are legitimate concerns and valid values underneath their inflammatory talking points. Over the next hour or so, I'll tell you about those legitimate concerns and valid values and how I found them. Issue number 1, size of government.
Agreeing with it. In my days, Democrats are the people who wanted more government. Republicans were people who wanted less government.
The things that you see in the Republican Party that are more attractive to you than things that you see in the Democratic Party, what are those things?
Small government versus large government. And on the left, the Democratic side, the government needs to do everything.
Whether it's the Department of Energy, which really has nothing to do with energy, Department of Education, or EPA, their mandate and charters have gone off the rails, and they're these giant unaccountable, just money-eating behemoths, and we pay for that.
I think everybody would agree. Government's out of control.
These are the talking points I was talking about. It was tough to keep from arguing like,
On the left, the Democratic side, the government needs to do everything.
not true, we don't want the government to do everything.
The Department of Energy, which really has nothing to do with energy.
Not true, the Department of Energy has at least a little something to do with energy.
I think everybody would agree. Government's out of control.
And not true, everyone wouldn't agree to that. But here's the thing. This is all hyperbole. They were exaggerating on purpose. And here's the other thing. We do that too.
Who's the victim?
Right.
Is it the woman? You know, we had a war on women. That's what the Democrats are running on right now. It's a war, not even a disagreement about something. It's a war on women, which is, come on. This is hyperbole. It's not a war. There are disagreements, yeah. We can try to negotiate those disagreements. But to demonize, and the right does this too, to demonize the other side, to make them into devils, isn't helpful from either perspective.
Yeah.
Why do we use so much hyperbole? Best I can figure is that hyperbole helps us express how we're feeling. It feels better to say, I can't believe how racist Republicans are, than it feels to say, I disagree with Republicans on policy involving race. The problem is that though hyperbole might feel better, it's just going to give us an inaccurate picture of the other side and make us mad at them. I'm not interested in being mad at an inaccurate picture anymore, so I'll be looking at what's underneath the hyperbole.
The conservatism, like what about that appeals to most people in Kansas or just yourself?
Well, I think it's kind of, the value that, we can take care of ourselves.
And there you go. Underneath the government is out of control hyperbole are the values of individual liberty and self-sufficiency and a concern that big government threatens those values. Now, taken to the extreme, the small government mantra can be dangerous.
The Kansas legislature passed and our governor signed a massive income tax reduction. It has had a devastating effect on the state of Kansas. The projections are that we'll be bankrupt in the next 4 years if we don't do something about it.
But I get now the valid values and concerns that mantra is connected to. By the way, we'll get to some of the issues John is about to mention later, but I just wanted you to get a sense of how incredible this guy is.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's I'm liking your version of republicanism.
What's wrong with me?
I'm like, you sound a lot like a Democrat.
I'm clearly a Republican. I believe in limited government, low taxes, strong national defense, but I also believe in taking care of less fortunate people in our communities. Women ought to have the right to decide for themselves whether they want abortion or not. 2 men or 2 women, if they want to get married, they ought to have the right to do that as long as they are not breaking any laws or adversely impacting their neighbors. There's no reason not to.
And their talking points notwithstanding, most of the conservatives I interviewed had rational, reasonable opinions about the size of government.
The whole concept of government is bad and they should get out of our lives.
Well, no, I don't mean to come across on that way. I'll give you an example with my mom. Being that she's on Medicare, she has some Medicare benefits. I really applaud Medicare. I applaud that program.
Because that's the other thing, like when you think, like, oh, we need to have government get out of things, I'm like, well, they're also providing the checks and balances to a lot of stuff financially, like Wall Street. There needs to be some very strict regulations on what they're doing because they can, as we've seen, screw people completely.
I don't like a big government. I think it's a waste of money, honestly. But also on the other hand, and this is where, strangely enough, I think not enough government is a bad thing too.
Another legitimate value I found hidden under the big government hyperbole was a concern for fiscal responsibility.
And I feel like that's the vibe I get a lot when I'm talking with people with liberals, progressives that are discussing economic policy with me. I feel like we're talking about free unicorns. And I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, unicorns are awesome. And they would be even better if they were free for everyone. But we can't do that.
This is why conservatives like pointing out the size of our national debt. It is, I think, their best argument in favor of low spending and small government.
And you know what? If we found a permanent solution to Social Security, Medicare, health care that kept our country solvent, I don't have to make keep 100% of what I make to be happy. But if we could solve some of these problems so that my kids aren't saddled with trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, I'd be okay with that if there was some median in the middle. So part of the problem is you've got the extreme conservative that to get elected, he's got to appeal to his base. You've got the extreme liberal to get elected, he's got to appeal to his base. And so then when they go to Congress, they've got to stay firmly entrenched in their liberal or conservative kind of mindset. And so now we have a situation where nobody wants to cooperate with each other, and there's some very sensible, easy solutions can be brought about if they simply had some median in the middle. And we're not seeing it.
Now, I don't think that conservatives are blameless when it comes to big government spending.
I think on the Republican side tend to be more, I don't know, I hate to say it, but at least they talk about being fiscally responsible.
I often think the small government, of the Republic, the current mantra of small government and fiscal responsibility, when it comes to defense, doesn't really apply. It's like we're going to spend.
I think that's true, that the Republicans tend to be more defense-oriented.
But just because conservatives may not be entirely consistent in their small government mantra doesn't mean they don't have a point. They do. Which was surprising. Issue number 2, welfare.
The thing is, you're rewarded for hard work, and I just, there's a lot of, seems like everybody wants their handout, and nobody wants to work anymore.
Look at the poverty program. LBJ came out with Great Society in 1965. Is poverty going away? No. After $22 trillion, we have the same amount of poor people in this country proportionally to our population as we did back in 1965.
You have to really be careful about unintended consequences of your actions, because that happens frequently. And you can do more harm than good. Even though your intentions are all great, you can end up doing some real harm if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And that's especially true in the social welfare area.
Now, although some conservatives wanted no public assistance for the poor,
I'm not against a safety net. I'm just against a...
I'm against a safety net.
You're against safety net? Okay, that's different. That's a little bit more of an extreme. I'm not on that far.
most conservatives wanted a government safety net. They just had a problem with how welfare does that.
The biggest part of me being conservative is that I don't believe that people should be given something. And I think you're doing them an injustice by doing it. You're never going to move them ahead by giving them something. If anybody thinks that's the way to go, I just can't believe they're thinking straight.
I would love to win one of those
Mega Millions or Power With, I got $300 million. And I would start charities left and right. But I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't just give people money.
Now, growing up, welfare was the issue that really separated us from conservatives. The message I got was that Republicans are bad because they don't care about the poor, and racist because so many of the poor are African American. But on my trip, I met conservatives who were African American themselves, which kind of poked some holes in that theory.
Unlike most conservatives, I'd say, I grew up poor. We were always on welfare or some sort of public assistance. I'll never forget these two girls on the bus talking about how they wanted a bigger place to live. It wasn't about, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get out of the projects, I'm going to get my own apartment. It was, I got to get pregnant, and this time I hope I have a girl, because a girl and a boy can't share a room, and I'll get an extra bedroom.
That's kind of what makes me more conservative, because a lot of the rhetoric I sometimes hear coming from the more liberal side, the policies are not about empowering people, but by taking care of people so much that it takes some of their power away. And that worries me. And I wonder if that's part of what's happened in Black America in the last 30 years, where things have gone backwards.
I have a thought. Back in the 60s, this guy Nevitt Sanford came up with a theory that for us humans to develop to our full potential, we need the right balance of challenge and support. Too much challenge and we fail, too much support and there's no incentive to learn and grow. It occurred to me while talking to Binta that conservatives emphasize the challenge part of that equation, talking about hard work and sacrifice, while liberals emphasize the support part, talking about government programs that help poor people. That's why conservatives like Ben Carson so much.
Dr. Ben Carson.
Ben Carson.
Dr. Ben Carson.
His pulling himself up by his bootstrap story is proof to them that challenge is the more important value. Now, I don't know that they're right. I'm with Sanford and his theory that we need the right balance of the two. But before this trip, challenge wasn't a value I even considered in our welfare programs. What's more, I get the value of challenge. My whole life is about challenge. This is me teaching middle school, playing minor league pro soccer, running marathons, doing triathlons. Heck, look at what I'm doing. I'm a liberal driving around the country talking politics with conservatives. Yeah, it's safe to say challenge is a pretty important value in my life. Now, we can argue about how our welfare programs are managing that challenge and support balance, but I think we need to stop it with the conservatives hate the poor rhetoric. Maybe some conservatives do hate the poor, but none of the ones I met did. Not even Joe, who didn't want a government safety net. He's just a strict libertarian.
Something you just said sparked something to me. I'm really curious what you think of Edward Snowden.
I love him.
Oh, you love him?
He's my hero.
Okay.
Seriously? No, dead serious.
Joe obviously differs with most of his conservatives on this.
Edward Snowden is a weaselly little bastard who should be hung, actually after he's shot.
I think Snowden's a traitor. I have absolutely zero respect for what he did. See, this is kind of a weird disconnect, because in one sense, I believe the government's shitty. I believe the government is bad at a lot of things and can't be trusted almost to a sense, where you believe the opposite of that to a degree. But in this situation, I'm trusting the government and you're not.
Yeah, we're switching sides a little bit.
Yeah.
In fact, there were quite a few ways in which he was a little different from most conservatives.
Another thing that you would probably agree with me on, that Riley is probably going to choke me to death. The torture report, I'm 100% against torture in every situation.
I'm against torture. I said I do have moral things, but what is torture? That's the whole point. Now, what is it? What would you say torture is?
The Ronald Reagan administration, Ronald Reagan, the god of conservatives.
I'm not saying he didn't have flaws.
Okay, but his administration defined waterboarding as torture. They prosecuted people over it.
Okay, yeah.
And that is the smallest thing we did.
And I would say, does it scare people? Yeah, there was 4 people who were waterboarded. Okay, and
I think it was a lot.
I don't know.
Rectal feeding, it was bad. Just personally, Riley might choke me again, but I'm very pro legalization of drugs.
By the way, people always ask me how I met the conservatives I interviewed. Sometimes I just look for them wherever I was, man on the street style. That's how I met Riley and Joe. All right, we're at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, and we're gonna see, we found out that the college Republicans are meeting at 5 o'clock. It's about 4:40, so we're gonna go see if we can say what's up, see if people want to talk to us. And here's me in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Howdy. Hello. Hey, sorry to interrupt.
So, just did my first man on the street interview with a couple. I thought it was good conversation, you know. But they didn't sign the release form at the end, which is what we're dealing with right now. Kind of dealing with feeling like, I don't know, it's hard not to take that personally, you know, like they don't trust me or, I mean, I understand, you know, you see The Daily Show or you see lots of shows that use footage to make fun of people, so I get it, but, you know, it was kind of sad. Like we had a couple moments. They were Christians, and they felt like the pendulum is swung too far in the opposite direction. They feel like they can't talk as much, and I've never had much respect for that point of view. You know, like the war on Christmas, or you know, persecuted Christians, and you know, people on the left, we don't give that argument any credence. Like, oh, there's a war on, you know, all of you who are in power. Like, oh, you have to, you know, we have to take down the 10 Commandments from the courthouse. But talking to them, it was, you know, it's talking to real people with real feelings. So there's that moment where I get, like, hey man, you know, I get you. I see what you're dealing with, and I feel it, and I get it. Boom, boom, boom. And then there's no signature of the release, so it's just kind of a bummer. But mostly I met them through friends and family. Almost everyone I know had a conservative friend or family member somewhere in the U.S. for me to talk to. Sometimes they were my friend or family member, like Dave and Binta from high school, or my Uncle George and my cousin Sean. That was actually a really cool part of the trip, catching up with old friends and family. So just pulled into Birmingham, Alabama, and we're gonna go over to my high school girlfriend Mimi's parents' place. I'm like nervous, you know, like I'm 16 again, and I'm trying to be worthy of Mimi's affections. Come on in. How are you? Good. Come on. Come here. Come here. You little wire-haired thing. Come here. Hey. I'm armed, you know. Well, come on in. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Mimi's parents are some of the most kind, fun, and generous people I know. But their conservatism had always cast a bit of a shadow over my relationship with them. With my judgments about conservatives slowly disappearing, so did that shadow, and I was able to just enjoy them as the phenomenal people they are.
Great to see you. Thank you so much. Love you too.
Smith and Wesson. It was so fun. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Issue number 3, the environment. It's common among us liberals to casually claim that conservatives hate the environment, but that's not true. What they don't like is the EPA.
EPA is writing a lot of regulations that have nothing to do really with preserving ecosystems. What it really is doing is creating an environment where government controls all the property.
We have the cleanest air in the world right now as an industrialized nation. Why isn't the EPA smaller than it used to be?
Well, but couldn't you also say that the reason that we have the cleanest air in the world is because of the EPA?
Right, but it's been clean for quite a few decades. When you have the EPA decide that this puddle is a wetland. Then you get into rules like you had in Maryland where rain is taxed.
It was tough to hear conservatives criticizing the EPA because I like the EPA and I think it does a lot of good. It was hard to keep from arguing, and with Alan Renee, I failed.
The government was originally put together to defend the country. That was really it. It was not meant for all of the things it does now.
Regulation,
What
branches of EPA, just, I mean, to open, yeah, get it back on me. To open a business, I could not believe the layers of bureaucracy and how much money we had to spend on EPA and first, second phases, third phases. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. And you want to just open a business, you can't. I mean, you can, but you have to hire a lawyer. You have to hire an attorney. You have to have accountants. You have, it's just you have to. Yeah, this is all the fun EPA crap
Water
we had
reports.
to go through. Water reports.
Groundwater.
And then to refinance, you have to have an updated water report. And they get a great 6 weeks to 8 weeks to update their one little letter. Why? Why does it take so long? I mean, that's just time is money to us. It is just a joke.
But don't you think like our water should be protected?
No, I don't
That's
think
a false narrative.
I think we should have dirty water.
No.
We should just crap in our water and drink it.
Here's
really?
No. But
what a stupid question. That seems like, and see, that's the frustration.
Well, okay, so
Yeah.
but that's what it sounds like when you say.
It does sound like this.
When you say, right, like the EPA is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how that you're making a generalization now? The only choice I have is to say you must want to take a dump in our water.
Yes.
Because you made this claim. Now I am if you want to start a business, I want the water to be protected. I want the process to make sense for you.
Absolutely.
I want your correspondences to be returned in a timely manner. I want all of those things. But if you take the stance like the EPA is ridiculous, all you're going to get from me is pushback.
That's true. Good point.
No, you fell into
that's
a
good
talking point narrative only. Yeah. You were almost there.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Well, you were almost there.
That actually worked out pretty well. Other times I failed to keep from arguing were a little more contentious.
We want a permanent military bases. So
we don't.
Cheap oil.
Wrong. We never have. Kuwait. Tell me what happened in Kuwait in '91 or '92. Take me through
Why
it.
do we stop? We always stop talking about Iraq.
No,
Why do we do that?
It was supposedly a war over oil, and we went in there and we gave blood and treasure, and we pulled out. We didn't commandeer any oil fields. And we would have done.
Do you understand that we're going to have a hand in setting up the government that's going to give us?
It is nation building. We're trying to build a democracy, and I'll argue all day that it doesn't work very well. No, we did. Did you know they had elections and thumbprints?
No, I understand.
That's a democracy.
Well, don't mock me.
No.
Talk to me a little bit about Obamacare and the.
I've seen more patients without insurance since Obama came into office than I have ever seen in my professional career.
This is the positive that I've heard about the Obamacare, is that people who couldn't get health care before now are able to.
Which is awesome, and then they can't afford it. So it's great. Great. So we've created a system.
No, they can afford it.
No, they can't, because their deductible is $10,000 off the mark. So they actually can't.
I'm talking about the people that can't.
So who can afford it? I'm curious. So I will tell you, we will not argue about this at all.
Okay.
This will get turned off. I'm not going to argue about this.
Okay.
Never said zero people weren't helped.
Gotcha.
Never. What I have said is that I have seen more people hurt by it than I have seen helped.
Okay, well then I misunderstood.
Yeah, way more people hurt by it than helped.
Gotcha.
But back to the environment. When I interviewed Mike, a mining engineer in Reno, it was my turn to take responsibility for a talking point, namely, mining is bad.
So you haven't had much exposure to mining, clearly.
Almost none. Yeah.
Well, look around, and you look around and name something that any product in this house, and I'll tell you how mining got that product to this place.
About the lamp.
Well, the lamp has got brass, which is tin and copper, comes out of a mine. The filament is tungsten, comes out of a mine. The glass comes out of a mine. It's sand that's been that's been heated and melted. The wire inside of here is steel, comes out of the mine.
Yeah, I think when we think, like, especially for progressive liberal Democrats, we think of the environment. Whenever we hear the word mining, we instantly think of chemicals getting into river supply or something.
Sure, absolutely.
That's the picture that immediately comes to mind.
Sure, that's what the media publishes. Who cares about a mine that's working and taking care of things? The Goodwill story doesn't sell copy.
Look, should we make sure mines are taking care of the environment? Of course. But shouldn't we at least acknowledge the good they do, how they provide us with the raw materials for just about everything, and how we wouldn't be able to survive without them? It seems to me that in politics, we're never allowed to acknowledge this complexity. You just have to choose. If you're conservative, you only talk about the good of industry and capitalism, and if you're liberal, you only talk about how industry is destroying the environment. By the way, I really like talking to Mike and getting to know him and his neighbors.
Anyways, fascinating conversation and amazing guy, really amazing. A phenomenal conversation. Then I met some of his neighbors. He gave me tomatoes from his garden, a zucchini, apples from his apple tree, strawberries from a strawberry patch that he has. His neighbor came over and I got like 1.5 pounds of honey. Charlie got jerky. Mike's wife gave me 3 bags of dog treats for Charlie. It was just and it was like a really heartwarming, awesome community. And I'm leaving a little bit, I don't know, I'm like sad right now. And I don't know if I'm like just, like I just spent, 4 or 5 days with my sister and her family, and then I just met this guy and his sort of neighborhood, and I have a feeling like a big part of this trip is going to be pretty lonely. So yeah. Yep.
That night, I had my first Walmart camping experience. Most Walmarts let RVs camp in their parking lots overnight, and I saved a lot of money doing that on my trip. Charlie has a seizure. He gets them every so often, and the vet says they're not dangerous, but they're still pretty scary. I wake up the next morning not in the highest of spirits. But we hit the road and head towards Utah. Charlie recovers on my lap. Pretty soon, he's back to normal. Now, no conversation about the environment is complete without discussing climate change.
And I'm certainly not a climatologist. I'm not a scientist. But I do know that skepticism is healthy for science, except when it comes to climate change.
Okay, so after talking to Joe, I looked at the data again, and it still seems pretty clear that climate change is real and caused by human activity. But I think I understand the conservative skepticism about it. First, I think there's a boy who cried wolf effect happening here. How we liberals sound when we talk about climate change, this is how we always sound to conservatives.
What's the biggest problem with people on the left, like liberals and progressives?
They scream about everything. Everything. There's nothing, there's nothing right in this country according to them. But it's true, they do. They're looking for any cause. I mean, my God.
Second, the policy prescriptions for fighting climate change are all liberal policy prescriptions. Government regulations, more funding for the EPA. So though I think we're right about climate change, I get why conservatives might be skeptical. Now, regardless of our disagreement over climate change, I really liked Joe. Plus, he took me hunting, which is something I really wanted to do, because I'd never been before and because it seemed like such a conservative thing to do.
You know how much I like
side by sides.
What's the side? What does that mean? Sorry.
Well, it means the barrels are side by side.
Oh, gotcha.
Now there's others that are over and unders where the barrel sits one on top of the other.
Gotcha.
But this is side by side. It's old timey. And then there's a 28 gauge shell. We are ready to go find some squirrels.
All right. There you go.
That's a fox squirrel. See the orange? They're big guys. So they're pretty squirrel.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them around here.
Can I hold him?
Oh, sure.
How much does he weigh?
Oh, pound and a half, maybe.
Pretty heavy.
Mm-hmm. Carried a lot of Appalachian people through the winter back in the day. People have kind of gotten away from eating squirrel. I don't know why. It's not as certainly glamorous as big game hunting or anything like that. It's more, I guess I enjoy it because I feel, like I mentioned earlier, that I know where my food's coming from. Can't get more free range than, this guy right here. As far as the ethics of hunting go, if someone's a strict vegan, I have no problem with them criticizing my way of life, But if someone goes to Giant Eagle and gets a cellophane wrap tray of chicken and brings it back and then criticizes me for killing squirrels, there's a disconnect there.
Every conservative I interviewed who hunted said the same thing, that they only kill things that they eat.
I kept a little bit of it. I'll never shoot another bear because honestly it tasted horrible and I like to eat everything that I shoot. So.
Afterwards, Joe let me do some shooting.
The slide steel. Okay, now with those 3 fingers, go ahead and lever the...
Oh, I forgot to, yeah.
Just go ahead and run the lever down. Okay, then close it. You're ready to go.
Okay.
Turns out I was pretty good.
Consistently, that's good. That's real good shooting.
Huh, thanks.
Sure. Let's shoot the pistol. I think you'll have fun.
All right, cool.
Oh, almost a bullseye.
All right on.
And I liked it a little more than I wanted to.
They're natural.
Sweet.
Want to shoot any more?
I'm good. Yeah, that was... Maybe, could I do with the rifle one more time?
Yeah, sure. Beautiful.
Issue number 4, abortion. Now, a few of the conservatives I interviewed were actually pro-choice.
So I'm not liberal. I'm personally religious, and I have personal beliefs, which you might characterize me as very conservative. But when it comes to the greater good, I don't believe that anybody should impose their personal beliefs. I think people should be allowed to make their own decisions. So whether you choose to abort or not abort, or use drugs or not use drugs, I think that's up to you.
But since most of the conservatives I interviewed were pro-life, let's talk about this perspective.
Abortion, I truly believe that is taking a child's life.
That is a basic core belief that conservatives can't do much about.
Sure.
Because if you believe firmly in your heart that that is taking of a life and that is murder, you can't do it.
I don't think I felt as strongly about it until having kids myself, and so it's sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. I just can't imagine terminating a pregnancy.
Yeah. Are there any exceptions, like in the case of danger of health, like if the mother's in danger of dying, or in case of rape or anything?
Mm-mm.
Nothing. Okay.
These are the kinds of views I expected to hear. What I didn't expect was a conservative, pro-life, Zen Buddhist priest. Yeah, I know. I didn't know they existed either.
I said, there's absolutely no way that the Buddha would support killing an innocent human being before they're born. And that is a liberal value. People, that is one of the altars of liberalism, is abortion. Killing innocent human beings disguised as women's health issue. I said, it's fine if you feel that way, but don't call yourself a Buddhist if you're going to think it's okay to kill an innocent human being before they're born. That's not one of our values, unless it's under catastrophic circumstances, and it might be the most compassionate thing for either the mother or the baby or both. That turns out to be the Dalai Lama's position as well, too.
I actually didn't know that was a Dalai Lama's position. I mean, I have no problem disagreeing with the Dalai Lama on this, but given how much I respect him, his opinion is definitely food for thought.
Sometimes it's difficult because, of course, yes, I'm a man and I'm not a female. I don't have the ability to give birth to a child, and so I think that the important thing is to obviously acknowledge that. And in no way is a man who takes a pro-life stance telling, in my opinion, people disagree with me on this, but in no way are we trying to tell men or women, what they can or cannot do. I mean, while I view it in many ways as black and white, I would be doing the topic and men and women in any discussion, liberal or conservative, a disservice by not acknowledging that, golly, I mean, we're talking about, people's, the life of a woman, the responsibility that comes with having a child, the responsibility that comes with, carrying that child. So there's some serious consequences that I do not take lightly.
Talking to conservatives didn't change my views on abortion, but it did change my view of how conservatives view the issue. Their views are a lot more complex and nuanced than I thought. It made me hopeful, actually, that rational, productive conversations might be possible with the other side. And it made me think that we on the left might bear at least some of the responsibility for why those rational, productive conversations aren't happening.
It seems like anytime somebody says they're pro-life, we are automatically branded as anti-woman. You don't care about women's rights. We don't have a chance to even talk about it. A wall goes up.
Issue number 5, gay marriage. I was surprised to find so much support for gay marriage among the conservatives I interviewed.
I'm probably as fiscally conservative as can be and maybe moderate on all social issues. So, for example, I support gay marriage. I don't think that's a thing that the government should be even trying to influence. Again, I think it's almost against conservative principles for us to be involved in that.
So you say you're libertarian, so that's fiscally conservative, socially liberal. Is that what that equates to? Fairly. Is so pro-gay marriage.
Obviously. Yeah. The weird thing is it's always been easier for me to be a gay person in conservative circles than it has been for me to be a conservative person in gay circles. A lot of liberals in the LGBT community hated any kind of discussion that veered off of the traditional, progressive liberal talking points. Every gay person has to be for gun control. Every gay person has to hate guns. Every gay person has to be for a huge social welfare state. Every gay person has to be pro-choice. There was. I always said, I was born gay. I wasn't born liberal or conservative. Those are decisions you make.
The Army really, opened my eyes to different cultures and from around the world, and then also some diversity that I'd never experienced before. I feel, especially in the Declaration of Independence, when it says all men were created equal, that line really sticks with me when it comes to gay marriage.
As great as it was to see how much support there was for gay marriage among conservatives, I was more interested in talking to conservatives who oppose it.
Voting originally was only restricted to white male landowners. And then as we grew as a nation, we learned that, it should be open to all people.
Yeah, but marriage isn't restrictive. If you're a homosexual man, you can marry any woman you choose if she agrees to it. But you can't change that to have a man and a man, because that isn't marriage.
Marriage is between a man and a woman.
Digging under the talking points, I learned one new important thing about anti-gay marriage conservatives.
If you love somebody, then, God bless you. Have a great time. But don't start changing the definition of words to suit the whim of the day.
In the mystery of marriage, the symbolism of the female church and the masculine Christ, Paul clearly tells us symbolizes something ontological, something that belongs to being itself. that would obviously create difficulties for accepting in our religious communities a gay marriage.
I thought anti-gay marriage conservatives want to deny gay couples equal rights, but that's not true. They just have a problem with calling that relationship with equal rights a marriage. Now that still seems wrong, but it's a smaller sin. I think we might be a little too quick to condemn people without fully getting their perspective.
Everybody has a right to love who you want to love and be who you want to be with. What I get irritated about is I don't want it flaunted in my face, whether I agree with it or not.
I want to explore the flaunting it piece, because it doesn't sound like you were against gay marriage, but I don't know. I guess I don't totally. The short question is I don't totally understand the flaunt. I understand it a little bit, like the experience of someone rubbing it in, but I don't totally get the experience yet.
The picture that sticks in my head when I talk about flaunting is that there was a Marine male who was deployed, and the picture that was shown in the Honolulu Advertiser upon his return was him. He had a boyfriend, okay, and the boyfriend was non-military. So he's like up and his legs are wrapped around his waist and he's hugging and all of the stuff. Although the excitement was understandable, the conduct was not.
I'm always, though I think my litmus test for that is to imagine the same thing with a woman a Marine woman coming back to her husband and jumping and wrapping her legs around.
And I would have the same opinion that it should not have been done like that, in uniform. The normal things that you would see between a man and a woman, I can see between a woman and a woman, a man and a man. When I walk down the street and hold hands, I could care less. Okay, just don't make it an issue. I guess that's the conservative part of me.
I don't care what people do in the privacy of their bedroom. Okay, I mean, I don't care. I mean, that's male, female, it's up to you. As long, kind of like Thomas Jefferson that way. As long as nobody's being harmed, what the hell's the difference? You know, I don't support. Where it goes off is I am a very, very strong supporter of male-female marriages. You know, I don't want to see I have the view. My friends don't have that view, that it will affect the family structure, which is at the basis of our culture, our society, and ultimately it may do harm. But I'm open to shifting that. My sister is very, very big in the gay women's community and helped pioneer it in Virginia.
We now look at marriage license as not husband and wife. It is now legally in many states spouse A, spouse B. Still, it's our stuff.
Would it help that concern if we had you had a choice of marriage certificates?
If we were given back, So if we can,
a gay couple and you could have the spouse A and spouse B, and if you're heterosexual,
absolutely, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Those are the things that the opposing side says. Nothing's happening here. There's nothing to look at.
Let's take a short break to talk about Texas. Why? Partly because it was one of my favorite states, but really so that I have an excuse to introduce you to Larry.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Joe. This is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Larry.
Sam Elliott. This is me and Robert Duvall over here when we did Lonesome Dove out here. Anyway, long story short, I've been in front of your cameras before.
That's great.
Come on into the main part of the house.
That young Sam Elliott is awesome.
Isn't it, though? It's real simple. Marriage is between a man and a woman, not a dog and a donkey. If you want to get married and call it a joint union, I don't give a shit. If you want to be married to another man, fine. Don't call a Chevrolet a Ford. That abortion issue really bothers me. Traditionally, I'm not for it because there's so many avenues to which could help a lot of young ladies in situations where adoption and programs are for them, and I'm not totally against it either. I can't get there. I'm not the woman. So I have a little bit of feeling of like her choice. I also believe that life starts at conception. So I have a conflicting point of view. I do know that the laws are such that in Texas, up to 120 days. I'll stick with that right now. I'll stick with the law. I hope I've been open to you enough to give you a feel that not all conservatives are dumbasses and not all liberals are smart.
That's very true. Larry inspires me to get some cowboy boots.
Yeah. Ooh, I kind of like the way these feel. All right, I like them. Boots, check.
I make Dan, the cameraman, try on a pair.
Can you tell I'm uncomfortable? I feel like I got buckets on my feet.
Look at that.
Okay. Are you done?
Well, give him a cowboy hat real quick. Dude. That vest actually suits you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
It looks like you look like you just got off of a bowl, man.
I did. It's a bowl called documentary filmmaking. Oh man. Yeah, I'm definitely fit the part.
From there I go to meet my first cows.
They curl, the tongue curls around it. It's so slimy.
It is nasty, isn't it?
Woo! How long ago is that cow before?
Oh, he's got to stand up. Look at the umbilical cord on him. He probably was born about 30 minutes to an hour before we got here.
Oh my God!
Pretty good mama cow. She's got a good maternal sense. And that sounds funny talking about cattle that way, but it's true. They're just like people. Some folks excel at some things, some don't.
Yeah.
She's pretty easy. Get legs. You don't think about how hard it is to actually work them the first time you met them.
Issue number 6, racism. Why is this a political issue? Because conservatives don't think it's much of a problem anymore, and we do.
I was in the Buffalo Battalion. They were called the Black Buffaloes. It was an all-black unit, and I was like at the time, I was one of like 3 white guys in the platoon. They treated me great. They were so nice to me, and I couldn't ask for a better bunch of guys. I don't think the race issue in this country is as bad as people make it out to be, at all whatsoever.
He's got a bloody nose.
Yeah, these guys are fighting over here.
Yeah, look at your fucking face. Yeah. You're in there for the rest of your life.
Damn it, here I am talking about it. There's a white and a black guy fighting. Son of a bitch.
This is where I nail him, right? Did you see the fight behind you? Hear the white guy drop the N-word? But the truth is, that fight doesn't prove we're right that racism is still a big problem any more than Dave's positive experience in the Army proves that it isn't. Racism, like most things, is a complex issue. Some things have gotten better, other things seem to have gotten a lot worse. Passing through South Carolina, I heard the Klan was having a rally to protest the removal of the Confederate battle flag from the grounds of the state capitol, so I hightailed it to Columbia. I wasn't able to interview anyone in the Klan, but I did meet this pretty level-headed kid named Brent, who wasn't in the Klan, but who wanted to show his support for the flag. I caught up with him later near his home in the hills of Tennessee.
Were you worried that you would be associated with the Klan being there?
Yeah, kind of. But that's why we stood off by ourselves. And also that's how we started out. You know, most people coming and talking to us is we flat out told them right then we're not there because we're with the Klan or that we support them. A lot of people don't carry this flag or fly it because we're racist. It's just a symbol of being proud of being from the South. That's all it is, to me anyway. Having our guns, being able to go kill our own food, fish, just stuff like that. Charlie Daniels Band. I love it.
The only thing I know is Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah,
right?
it's one of my favorite songs. He's got like in America, that song talks about how America has to stand up, be one again instead of dividing over silly things, getting mad over silly things like gay marriage. I can't believe that divided people the way that it did. To me, that's their business, If they're gay and they want to get married, it doesn't affect me any. And I can't believe that people can't respect you're liberal. That's cool. I respect that. I'm talking to you right now. I don't understand why people can't be like that.
Yeah.
I respect you for your beliefs, and I assume that you respect me for mine.
Totally.
And I don't know why people can't be like that.
Issue number 7, immigration. The conservative position on immigration is kind of hard for liberals like me to hear.
Our strength is our diversity. Bullshit. Our strength is not in our diversity. Our strength is in unity.
These people are actually invading our country.
Though at least Jim was somewhat aware of where his position comes from.
It's the whole idea that sometimes they just get the word down to let people come across. You watch the news and...
You think that's...
Yeah.
They're letting people come across?
Sure, yeah.
You think that with that word, where do you think that order's coming from?
Oh, I think it comes from Obama.
Really?
Yeah,
You think he's telling people on the border to let people across?
Well, he's actually said that a number of times.
To let people across illegally?
Yeah.
I'm not sure you have your facts right. You think that he said?
Well, of course, I watch conservative news.
Right,
okay?
gotcha.
Okay, so I haven't seen it, but
his views on immigration notwithstanding, I really liked Jim.
But I was in a couple wars, and I really felt bad at some of the things that we done. I've just seen too many young men die, I guess, and gee, I tell you what, I'm in favor of doing anything that we can to keep from going to war. But like I said, I really never sat down with anyone and like this and talked.
Oh, good. I hope it was enjoyable.
And I appreciate you brought out some good points.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Make me think.
Okay.
Because when you get to be like I am, over 80, and you're pretty well set in your ways, and you get to thinking, well, by God, there are people that's got better ideas,
But back to immigration. Given all the vitriol I hear coming from the right, it was more than a little surprising to hear conservatives say positive things about immigration.
I don't like it when they demonize illegal aliens. I see them as immigrants. Am I pro-immigrant? Absolutely.
Immigration is a very, very valuable thing and has made this country what it is today.
And it was surprising to hear conservatives criticizing other conservatives.
I mean, there's many on my side that say, well, let's get the buses and the planes, the boats, whatever we have to do, round them all up and send them home. Can't do it. There's no way. I mean, I wouldn't even want to embark on that endeavor.
I mean, I think most honest people are going to say, there's no way we're going to get rid of 12 or 20 million people who are here illegally. So I think that's one of those areas where I agree. There are conservative politicians out there who will say, no amnesty, no benefits to these people, they're not going to get anything, and that's just, it's not realistic.
Yeah.
It's candy to the crowd. And it's like, okay, let's actually just figure something out.
The truth, I think, about illegal immigration is that each side emphasizes an important part of the issue. Conservatives emphasize a secure border, and liberals emphasize a humane immigration policy. But we need both. So what's all the arguing about?
The problem is the parties like to divide. They like to lead us to believe that we have only two choices. They want us to believe we can either have a secure border or we can have a humane immigration policy. They want us to believe we can either have high quality or affordable health care. They want us to believe that we can either have schools that work or teachers' unions. But the reality is there's ways to bring together the needs of both sides in a policy prescription that actually moves our country forward. But that's not how you win elections. You don't win elections by talking about the ways we move forward. You win elections by dividing people.
Greg is an independent who ran for Pat Roberts' Senate seat in Kansas. It was close, but he lost, which is a shame. It would have been nice to see what he might have been able to accomplish in Washington. So, what did I get out of all this? In a word or two, nuance and complexity. Conservatives, and the issues themselves, are more complex and nuanced than I ever thought they were. Conservatives even make good points from time to time. They make me angry a lot of the time, but that's just their hyperbole and talking points talking. Underneath the rhetoric, there are good people, honest values, and valid concerns. I didn't become a conservative on my trip, but I became a new kind of liberal. Kind of liberal that can see not just my side's virtues and the other side's flaws, but the other side's virtues and my side's flaws. It gives me hope. Because if the other side isn't nuts, then we can talk to them. And that is good news.
You were able to ask me questions and you let me answer.
I really enjoy that. I think this is a really good idea.
I know what Al's gonna say about you when you leave. He's gonna say, "No, that's a Democrat I like."
Oh, there's a bunch of them out there, though.
Any final things you want to say? Or it doesn't have to be, but the opportunity there.
I like you. I like you a lot. I want to shake your hand and I wish you the best on this.
Thank you so much.
Because I think this documentary, by some miracle, turned out to be a big hit. It would do our culture good.
You're brave. I think you're brave. Because I think you could you're just getting into a hornet's nest by saying, I'm going to go over here. And I just think that's incredible. I think it's incredible you're doing it. I think that's the voice that we need to start having.
was the first person we found, and we got a nice reception. Thumbs up.
Oh yeah?
Very nice.
They will vote for us.
Oh cool, right on.
Fellow Republicans.
Nice. I mean, boo.